Oh God, nope, 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 nope. The heck, nope, 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 nope.
now that we actually have that evil cold white stuff outside, let's go ahead and start working on some recipes. Now I am actually starting to do a little bit at a time at night after work, between work and sleep. So we're going to go ahead and prepare this next recipe that I have. It'll go with the ferments that I'm going to make. Trust me, you're going to like it. Now I did get a book. It's a sausage making book. It also has other recipes called, let's see, I can never say this. It's this book. I don't know if you can turn it around, but it's glare. There you go. And one of these has a recipe that I looked at and thought immediately I wanted to try. It's called Roasted Duck Roulete. It's actually pate, because apparently, according to this book, meatloaves and pates are considered a sausage type. If you think about it, they're technically correct. And the meatloaf that Mom used to make is kind of like a chunky pate. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and prepare the duck. Apparently I need to cut up the breasts into chunks, and we're going to refrigerate that, and then the rest of it we're going to go ahead and grind up, reserving the skin, because we're actually going to use the skin to wrap it up and brown it out. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first things first, let's go ahead and get this sucker out of the bag. Duck is not cheap. If we don't like this, we will never make it again. But we do like duck. Oh, come on. Can they make this any more difficult? Okay, the recipe says reserve the liver, because this is going to get ground up with the meat that we're grinding up. But the rest, there's the neck. I'm going to cut off the tail, make it a little bit easier. Looks like there's other things in here too. I guess we're grinding all of that up. Looks like the heart. And it comes with all natural orange sauce. Let's see, is there an ingredients list here? No, there is not. I'm guessing they don't want you to know what you're putting into your body. Okay, so this is going to be just like the turkey. We're going to go ahead and take off the legs. Actually, we need to skin it first. There's some thick skin on this. Because we need to reserve the skin, because we're going to wrap everything up in it. Chickens are better. They're so much easier. Thing is that if we get some meat on the skin, I really don't care. Because this is not going to be perfect. I mean, we're grinding up the meat anyway. Now I'm guessing if you get your meat bird at a butcher, they can do this for you. I'm hoping. Let's take the leg off since we have the skin off of this. Almost off. There we go. Oh, that's lovely. Now these wings, we're just going to take off and make stock. Because there's hardly anything on these wings. And it'd be more trouble to try to get the meat off of them. Unlike a turkey wing. careful around the breast because that's what we need to stay whole. Look how thin that skin is, or thick that skin is. That's all fat in there. You know what? There we go. One duck skin. If anybody has ever skinned a duck and knows of an easier way of doing this, please let me know. That was painful and it's probably painful to watch. That's pretty decent size though. So we are reserving this. These are going to go in for stock. And then we're going to debone and cut up everything but the breasts. The breasts we're going to remove. And the recipe says to cut up into cubes because these are going to be cooked first before we add it to the pate. I've got a feeling we're going to have more skin than this pate can hold. This is for $20. This duck's pretty skinny. Stock. Now let's go ahead, remove the rest of what we can off of this thing. Doesn't look like there's much left. I'm not seeing much else that we can grind up. It's a little bit here. Maybe. Come on. There we go. Ow. Get all the cartilage out. So you don't want that ground up in your meat. I think that's all I can get off of this thing. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff in here that I could probably get out. I mean, it looks like there's these kidneys, which we can put in. That looks about it. We'll use the rest of this for stock. All right, so let me go ahead and get washed up, and I'll go ahead and get the meat grinder out. I'll show you how I grind meat. Okay, now that we have everything cut up, canola baggies, so we can save it for later, we have our duck skin. I'm going to put that in the fridge, let it chill overnight. We have our cut up duck breasts. Not much meat on this. It was mainly bone. And that's how much meat we were able to get off of that carcass. All nice to be able to cut up, along with the liver that's in here. Now, it didn't say anything about the other giblets, it just said liver. So that's what I'm doing. I'm saving everything else for like sauce or broth, something like that. All right, there we go. Hi. Now, I'm going to go ahead and grind this up. I'm going to do a medium grind because I feel that the fine grind may be a little bit too pasty. and that's it. You don't need to freeze your meat. It took me 2 hours to debone and grind 20 pounds of pork the other day. It took him a lot less to do a lot less. Okay, and there we have it. One $20 duck for Daffy. Cut up Elmer Fudd style. We've got the carcass for stock. Ground. This is a quart size bag, so about a pint of ground duck. The skin and the chicken breasts ready to be cut up for later. Now everything's going to go into the refrigerator, and we are going to go ahead and process everything at a later date because it is getting close to midnight, and hopefully tomorrow there won't be so much evil cold white stuff on the ground. Okay, so now that the Snowmageddon of 2022 has ended, we're going to start with our first ferment. Now we are going to go ahead and finish up the duck later on in this episode, but I want to go ahead and start getting some of these vegetables ready to be pickled. We're going to start with sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is actually really easy, and this stuff is homemade. Sauerkraut is so much better for you and so much better tasting than that crap in a can. So let's get started. First things first, we want to make sure that our jars are clean. I'm going to be using half-gallon jars for this, for the sauerkraut. And then you have your weights. Okay, I have glass weights that actually fit in the mouth of these jars. They're specially made. And there's also fermenting lids. These are specially made to have the gases that the ferments actually give off, which creates the smell. The gas is out, but does not allow the air to come back in like a regular crock. You want to make sure everything is what's called anaerobic. Anaerobic means without air. You want everything submerged under the brine to be able to ferment properly. Now for this purpose, I've already cut up the cabbage, one large cabbage. You want to keep some of the top leaves intact as much as you can because you're going to actually use these kind of like as lids, and then put the weights on top of them to try to keep all the small pieces underneath the brine. But I have gone ahead and cut them up, got the core out, and I'm going to cut this up a little bit further, and then we're going to shred them with my new shredder. I've used this a couple of times to shred cheese. I have done regular cheddar cheese in the shredder, as well as about a gallon's worth of Parmesan, because every time I want Parmesan cheese, there is none in the house. Keep the rinds. You can use those for soups. All right, and let's go ahead and start shredding. Now for this, you want something large. This is the biggest Tupperware I have. I usually use this for shredding my cabbage, making my other things like kimchi. and branding my turkey because it's that big. I want to show you something. This shredder came with 3 styles of blades. This is the big one. You can actually do this with a knife. All you need is a knife and just make tiny slivers of shredded cabbage. This is easier, more uniform, and even it'll take less time if you do it with this. Now you can use a food processor with the same type of grating on it. This came with 3 different styles. We have the big holes like this. We have the smaller holes, which I did the cheese in this morning, so I need to wash that. And it comes with a slicer. The slicer is great for things like zucchini and cucumber whenever you're making things like pickles or anything that needs to be shredded thinly, maybe carrots or onion. Let's go ahead and put this back in. Now, first thing is first, I want to make sure that this is good enough. This looks a little bit too small for me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to the slicer, and then we'll continue. That is so much better. You want it in strips. All right, let me go ahead and finish the rest of this up, cut it up, shred it up, and then I'll show you the next step. And there we have 1 full head shredded up. See how much it used? And I can guarantee you about half of this easily will become moisture. It'll sweat out all the juices that are in the head of cabbage with the salt and thyme. But that's a lot of sauerkraut. This will last us a year. Now what we want to do is that we want to use a salt that has no iodine in it. Iodine actually reacts badly with ferments, and you want either plain sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. Make sure there is the anti-caking agent in there is okay. This is Norton's sea salt. I usually go to, where is it? Hold on. Okay, I usually go to the Asian store that's near me, and I get the bucket. It's like $5. Natural sea salt, just salt. That's it. Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and I'm going to put this up because this has an anti-caking agent that I'm not too familiar with, so I am going to keep this for table salt. I didn't notice that. But for this amount of cabbage, we're going to use 3 tablespoons of salt. That's it. That's all you need. So 1. Let's do this. We're going to sprinkle it all over. That's it. Now, you can leave it like this. This is plain. But I'm going to put in some caraway seeds because I like the rye taste in my sauerkraut. And I'm going to use 1 tablespoon. Yes, I'm putting this all in together. Some people will add it after they have massaged their cabbage. I'll show you how that works. But me, I'll just do it all at once. It doesn't really matter. It's about a tablespoon. Now what we want to do is we want to get our hands dirty. Make sure they're clean, obviously. And we're going to go ahead and mix it all up. Trying not to make a mess. Because you want to get that salt all nice and mixed into the cabbage. Because what that's going to do is going to help the cabbage to release its own liquid. And that's what we want. We want it to release its own liquid. Now, after everything is massaged and nice and coated, we're going to put a lid on this, and we're going to leave it for about an hour. Some people say 20 minutes. It really depends on how fine your cabbage is. If you hand do it, leave it at least 4 hours because it's going to take a while for that salt to penetrate. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and do some pickles. This is going to be garlic and dill. It's going to be a fermented pickle, no vinegar. It's just a little bit of salt, water, dill, garlic, and cucumbers, and a tannin agent, which I am using fig leaf. I have a fig tree in the backyard that gives me free fig leaves, It is a good source of tannins. What tannins do is they actually make the pickle crisp instead of having a limp pickle. But it's good, you know, it's really personal preference. I like a crisp pickle, but I'm not, that the cucumber can actually get quite mushy over time, so you kind of want something in there. Now, other tannin sources that you see in regular pickles is bay leaves, mustard seed. Some people use green tea or regular tea leaves because they also have those tannins in there. There is, let's see, fig leaves and grape leaves. Now, I do have some grapes that I planted last year that I'm working on trying to hopefully made it through this freeze so I can actually have some sort of vine next year so I can actually do stuffed grape leaves. If not, try again, maybe. I don't know. The weather here has been very weird. Now, what we want to go ahead and do is we're going to get our cucumbers out. Yes, I bought these. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, you can process these any way you want. We like half pickles, the splitting of them in half. You can do them in quarters or you can do them whole. The size of the pickle depends on how fast they actually ferment, just like with the cabbage. Okay, these go to my worm farm. You want to wash these pretty good. Okay, so before I start cutting these up, I've got my 2 jars here. I'm making sure that they're wide mouth because the fermenting lids are wide mouth only. I have not been able to find a fermenting lid that is regular, and I don't think they're ever going to make them like that. Okay, these are my fig leaves. I have already dried them for storage. I'm going to take the stem off and kind of break them up a little bit. 1 fig leaf per jar. These are quart jars. And what I have here, these are frozen dill ferns and stems, you know, the blooms. And then these are garlic stems. I grew up my own. These both I grew my own. And I saved the stems to freeze for my ferments. And I'm going to put in 1 per. The leaves of the garlic I dehydrate and make into powder. And then obviously the bulbs. These last a long time. Now we're going to go ahead and cut up our pickles. Oh, cucumbers. They're not pickles yet. And you want to place them ever so neatly. In the jar. Some of these are going to be quartered. Just to be able to fit. I may save one for a salad if they don't all fit, because it looks like 2 for halves. And 1 for quarters. If you smush and break up the fig leaves a little bit, that's fine. Won't hurt. It's not going to affect the product. I may actually be able to get 1 more quarter in here. Yeah, we have a half a cucumber left. We'll do something with that. Like eat it. Now, here comes the tricky part. Everybody says that you need a 5% brine for pickles. Me? 1 tablespoon, a jar. Fill with water. Wait. Wait. And that's it. Oh, make sure your weights are sterile. That needs to go down a little bit. There we go. And that's pickles. Now, these will probably be done in, with this weight, or this weather, since it's colder, it may take 5 days for this to be done, to a week in quarts. If you're doing half gallons, add twice as much. But you'll actually notice. Now, whenever you actually do Put these in a warm place. You want to put a bowl underneath these because you're going to see liquid here. It's actually going to talk to you. It's going to bubble and it's going to spill over. That's perfectly normal because the cucumbers are releasing their liquid as well as everything else. That is a normal process, and the bubbling is going to be normal as well. Same thing with the cabbage. You want to put a bowl underneath that. One bowl per jar. Or if you have like one of those cooking trays, the baking pans that can fit all of it, use that. Okay, now that we're done with the pickles, the cabbage is ready to be jarred. Now, there's a process to this. First things first, you're going to massage the cabbage to where it's releasing all of the liquid that is inside of it. You don't add any liquid to this. Okay, it's just salt. And once you get a good bunch of the liquid released, I don't know if you can see that. I'll get you over here. We're going to go ahead and put it in the jar. You can see all this liquid. That has been released from the cabbage. I hope that was a good shot. So, once that is done, let's go ahead and start putting them in our jars. Now, there is a process to this. You put some in. And you're going to get your ground pounder. These came off of a tree that we took down about 5 years ago. And I stripped the bark off, sanded it, graded it down, and have been using this to make kraut for the past 5 years. You can buy these off of Amazon. They're about $10 to $20 depending on how fancy you want them. This was for free. Can't beat free. Actually, you can. Haha. But you want to go ahead and put a little bit in. Don't break the jar. And you're going to smush this down. And continue doing this. You're going to make a mess. But you see how much that is actually gone down? This is only going to be one jar. There is a reason why we are smushing it down like this. Okay, you want this to be as anaerobic as possible. That means that everything that you're going to do here is going to be under liquid. And you want to make sure that there are very little air bubbles because the air will create bacteria that you don't want. You have all that liquid left, you're going to add it. That is your brine. And get as much of this in as possible. And then clean up any mess that you have. Anyway, now, remember those pieces of leaf that I told you to save? What we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and use these to put on top of this. Okay? Forming a seal. Use as many of the leaves as you need to. Sometimes you only need one, sometimes you need more than one. But we want this to be sealed. To where none of those little itty bitty pieces gets up into the air environment. One more. A little bit over here. And a little bit over here. And after this is done crowding, you can go ahead and remove these and put these in your compost. Won't hurt anything. And these you can either, cook up or put them in the compost, worm pile, whatnot. This is going to go compost. Get all the little pieces from the lid off because they're going to rot. You put your weight in and your fermenting lid on. And that's it. We have We now have 2 garlic dill pickles. 1, those are in quarts. 1/2 gallon of very, very young, unmature sauerkraut. And this will take a month, easily, 4 weeks. These will take about a week, possibly a week, and about a week. Check them on in a week. If they need more time, then give them more time. If whenever they're done, go ahead and take this off, take the weight out, put a lid on it, and put it in the refrigerator Refrigerating ferments will slow down the fermenting process, but will not um, stop it completely. Freezing it will stop it completely. You don't want to freeze pickles, not unless you have, a process to where you can bring the pickles back to life and not have them all mush. Hope you enjoy, and we'll go ahead and start filming the duck. All right, so it is the next morning, and I want to go ahead and before we start filming the rest of the duck recipe, I want to show you exactly what to expect. There's a reason why we have this in a deep dish pan, is because whenever you wake up in the morning, you're going to have water. And this is normal. Just pour that off a little bit so it can actually bubble up more. And eventually it's actually going to start bubbling itself. It's going to start talking to you. I'm hoping I can actually film that, maybe in a later video. I'll be able to show you what I mean by talking. These haven't quite started watering yet, but eventually they will, along with the kraut. And that's what I wanted to show you this morning before I started the duck. Okay, good morning. Next day. Now that we have the fermenting, we're going to go ahead and start the duck roulette. This is the first time I've ever done this. I'm going to have the cookbook open over here, and we're hopefully going to go best step by step. I've read through it a couple of times. It does take a lot of chilling in between some sessions, but I kind of want to get this done today. So we're going to go ahead and work on getting things wrapped up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in the ground duck. So apparently this is a sausage type of pate, meatloaf, whatever you want to call it. We're going to go ahead and get as much of this out as possible. Yuck. All right, and it says to add 4 ounces of pork back fat or as needed, diced. I've got some pork fat that I've gone ahead and cut up into little cubes. I think I'm going to use maybe half of this. And I'm going to freeze the rest of it for sausage. 1 tablespoon salt. It's calling for kosher salt. We're not that fancy here. We're going to do pink Himalayan. One and a half tablespoons of white pepper. That's a lot of pepper. That's a lot of pepper. One tablespoon of vegetable oil. In here? It's already got enough of fat in it, doesn't it? It wants me to cook the vegetables in the oil first before I put it in here. That I can do. We'll go ahead and get this on. Thing is that I already have everything minced up. So this is going to be like warming up the garlic and the shallots, because it's asking for 1 tablespoon minced shallots and 2 tablespoons of roasted garlic paste. I'm guessing we're roasting this. And while this is warming up, we'll go ahead and put in the 1 cup of, now it's calling for 1 cup of sherry. I don't have sherry, but we are going to use that red wine that I've had forever. One cup of that. And 1 tablespoon of sage. That's about as much as I have left. Need to go to the store because my sage bush out front is not big enough. Just lets you know it will get big enough. It just takes time. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and start mixing this and wait for this to come up to temperature so we can go ahead and roast the shallot and garlic paste. Okay, now it says you need to cool this off before adding it. You know what? I'm going to add it little bits at a time. We're going to leave that because we're actually going to need that to be able to prepare the breasts. Because that's apparently a different process. And this is pretty soupy. so we're going to work on the breasts while this is still mixing. Let's go ahead and move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so now it's wanting 4 ounces of butter. It's a lot of butter. Or actually 8 ounces of butter. This is 4 ounces. I am not going to use this much. I'm only going to use 2. That's a lot of butter. The thing is that I actually make herbed butter. I'm going to use the herbed butter on this one. This is basil. I think basil would actually go well with this. So let's go ahead and put this in here. You can make garlic butter like this. You can make honey garlic butter. And all you have to do is can it. Don't need to put it in the freezer or the refrigerator. Now that's plenty of butter. Now it's asking for 1 cup of diced onion. I am actually going to use the spring onion that I had. You can use any onion you wish. It's asking for 1 cup of chopped carrots. I do not have chopped carrots in here, so I'm going to omit that. All the carrot mash that I actually had from my previous juicer went to feed my worms for a month. Okay, it's asking for more garlic. I am definitely going to need to get more garlic. And grow more garlic. Because this is it. This is all I have. Two bay leaves. I needed to see if it was something that needed to be ground up and added. But I'm guessing this is to help flavor the butter. And we'll just fish those out. Now it does say 1 bunch of fresh thyme. But since this is the winter time and things are not quite perking up, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of dried herb. Okay, and it says kosher salt and black pepper. I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of each, because there's a lot of salt in this. Not a lot of pepper. I'm going to do half a teaspoon. That's too much. Okay, I'm going to set this aside to cool a little bit. That's what we need to do, besides cleaning up everything. Wow. Is we need to actually cook the duck breast. It tells you to do this before we do this, but everything's out of order right now. Now it says you want to cook the duck breast in high heat oil. You want the outside to be brown, but raw in the middle. So very high heat. No salt, no nothing, just oil. I'm going to do this in the a loaf pan. I'm still going to roast some vegetables, but not the way I wanted to. I was going to put the roulette over the vegetables to let the fat kind of drain onto them and help roast them. But since this is a little bit more liquid than I thought it would be, we're going to go ahead and do it in this. Now, I do believe this is hot enough. How to tell if it's hot enough is that you want to go ahead and put your hand over it and then put some water droplets onto it. And if it does that, it's hot enough. stand back. And remember, we want to brown the outside, leaving the inside raw. Why they do this, I have no idea. I'm guessing because it's roasted duck, really. And this is the roast. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and remove these. Now it says to stretch this out. Come on. Let's mix that in. Okay, I think we're done with this. Let's get this out of the way. First things first, we're going to go ahead and rinse off all the blood off of this. Because if you see, it's actually got a little bit on there. Now, I am going to do, because we're not going to be able to wrap this up, and it's not going to be a nice crispy brown on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and flavor the bottom and the sides. Pay special attention to the corners. And we're taking our duck skin and, as best as we can, line the loaf pan. Okay, at this time we're going to preheat our oven to 325. Down. There we go. And I know I'm not doing this the traditional way, but we're going to go ahead and pour this in. Now that might help if I hit start. Still working on it. That wine actually gave it a nice red color. I wish I had sherry, but you do what you can with what you've got. And we're going to go ahead and fold the skin over. There's going to be some exposed parts on here. That's fine. What you can do is we can actually cut some of this off and place it on the exposed sides. So it doesn't burn. There we go. And then the rest of this will go on top. Now, the recipe says to put parchment paper on the top of this, because we're going to need to bake this before we can go ahead and at least brown the top of the skin. So we want to go ahead and put a top on here. I'm going to use foil because it's what I have. I don't have parchment paper. Now, there's a reason for there's a difference on foil. It's the same on everything. You have a dull side and you have a shiny side. The shiny side recoils heat, okay, just like a mirror. The dull side brings in the heat. So you want the foil to be face down. That way the heat stays inside. Okay, and as soon as that's done preheating, we'll go ahead and pop that in. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and work on the roasted vegetables. Now, since I have about half a jar of the herbed butter, we're going to use that. And the rest of that pork fat. And we're just going to let that melt and render itself as much as possible. And in this, and it's done. In this, I'm actually going to go ahead and add the salt into it, because usually you put salt on the vegetables after you oil it. I'm going to make sure that all of this is actually nice and salted already. About a half a teaspoon, or half a tablespoon. It also helps bring out the fat from the chunks. But you want to be able to do this on a low setting, unless you like fried fat. Alright, so while that's rendering down, we're going to go ahead and put in the duck into the oven. Now it says 325 for 45 to an hour, but the internal temperature of this must be around 140. Thing is that get your meat thermometer out, okay? Make sure that it's nice and clean. Check on it at 45 minutes. Take your temperature. Then if it needs more time, go ahead and check it every 15 minutes until it reaches the internal temperature. You do not want raw duck. It is not nice. Okay, set your timer. For 45 minutes. Make sure you chop up your vegetables. It's a good size portion. I've got cauliflower, daikon radish. There's an onion in here, some sweet bell pepper, and some squash that came out of the garden that I put in frozen and let thaw and drain. Looks like it's about done. You can take the chunks of fat out if you want, but you know. Okay, we're going to go ahead and turn this off. Okay, and hot and all. Scrape it. Get all that goodness out of there. And you're going to mix it. If it needs more oil, go ahead and use regular vegetable oil because you already have all the goodness from the butter and the herbs already in here. This is going to need a little bit more oil. But no salt because we have plenty of salt in there. Don't need that. Now, give this a little bit more of a toss. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the bottom of my broiler pan. Okay, it has a lid down here that has the slits in it to let the fat drain. That's what I was going to use to be able to cook everything, but when I saw what was going on, I changed gears. But we're still going to use the bottom of the pan. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and stick this in uncovered. You want this to, it will steam itself. You don't need any covering on this. And we will check on it every 45 minutes. And we'll check on it every 45 minutes. So just like the duck, we'll go ahead and check them both periodically. And whenever they're done, we'll bring them out and we'll go ahead and show you. Okay, now that I've gotten them out of the oven, it took about an hour and a half for everything to get done. In the middle, whenever I hit the 45-minute mark, I did drain the liquid that was out of there so it can continue to cook a little bit more to come up the temperature. And then after that, I put it on high broil for about 10 minutes to be able to get everything crisp. So, let me get out my lovely, lovely hot pads. It still has a little bit more liquid in there, but I am going to go ahead and let that cool. We're going to go ahead and get that plated up. Actually smells really good. Really, really amazing. And here's the roasted vegetables, a little bit crispy, but it's all nice and roasted and cooked. And let's just let this cool down a little bit. We'll plate it up and we'll go ahead and do a taste test. Okay, now that we have this done, what we're going to go ahead and do is do a taste test. I do smell a lot of that red wine in there. So I'm hoping that the duck actually goes through with this, because if all I taste is red wine, I'm going to need to buy some sherry or something. Let's go ahead and get past the skin. Actually get into the meat. You can tell it's green-like. Let's go ahead and let it cool down a minute. I'm going to have some of the skin along with that, just to see what it tastes like. It smells like red wine, but you don't taste it. I taste a lot of the herbs. It's definitely a dark meat. And this is a do-again. Special occasions, though. It's definitely a do-again. I thought there was too much pepper in this. It's actually not. I mean, I can taste the pepper, but it's not overpowering. I kind of like this. We're going to go ahead and wait for Grandpa Rebel to come home. And we'll go ahead and see what his opinion is. He's at work right now. Yep. Let's see how you like it. You need to cut it. That's why I have the knife there.
The skin's quite spongy and chewy. Has a little bit of pepper taste. I think it's still a little bit bland.
Do you taste the red wine at all?
No.
I taste a little bit of it, but it's got a lot of sage in it.
A little peppery, chewy. The skin is, but I think it's still a little bland.
Okay.
Okay, and there you have it. There's, sorry about the long video. There was a lot of steps in this. It is something that was completely new to us. He didn't taste too much of the duck or the wine. He tasted the pepper. Said that there may be too much pepper on this, so that's something that needs to be adjusted, at least for us. Now, next week, hopefully it'll be a shorter video because I'm going to be doing milk ferments and dealing with the what types of milk ferments that there are available, at least to me, and that we use on a regular basis. See you next time.